Hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tech Talks with NASSCOM Insights. I'm Sneha Sharma, Analyst, NASSCOM Insights. As you know, 5G is the next level of mobile networks that will shape the Industry 4.0. In India, the Department of Telecommunication has confirmed that the 5G services will be available in the 13 cities in 2022. With increase in cellular bandwidth, blazing speed, and low latency, 5G promises to boost the IoT by making it easy for many devices to connect, communicate, and be controlled remotely. Joining me today are two very special guests from Indian digital service and digital ecosystem areas. On behalf of NASSCOM Insights, I would like to welcome Vishwanathan Ramaswamy, or as he is popularly known as Vishy, is Vice President for 5G and Digital Solutions Incubation at Tata Communications. With over 3.5 decades of experience, Vishy is a leader in the telecom and communications industry and an expert on various networking technologies and the associated IT solutions. A thought leader in the areas of technology, convergence, and industry application of mobile networks technologies. Vishy has also worked with companies like Wipro, Vodafone India, AT&T, Crompton Greaves Limited in the past. I would also like to welcome Sandeep Gupta, who is working with Airtel Network Group as Executive Vice President, Strategy and Architecture. Over last 9 years of engagement, he has given strategic direction for transformation of Airtel's wireless network by driving spectrum strategy, network readiness for 4G and 5G, influencing device and network ecosystem, building telco cloud orchestration, and conceptualization of new initiatives for creating capacity at lower cost and digitizing customer experience. Sandeep has also delivered Airtel's Global Engineering and Customer Experience Lab, which is being used for seeding of new technologies and validation of commercial solutions before their mass rollout in the network. Sandeep has been associated with telecom industry for last 3 decades and has wide experience in technical marketing, business development, product management, designing of solutions and services. Prior to Airtel, he has served various organizations in senior management positions such as Director for Solutions Sales in Hawaii, Head of Product Marketing at Motorola, while starting his career with CDOT, India's premier telecom R&D design center. Sandeep is also holding key positions and engagements with various industry associations such as ORAN, TIP, Global TD-LTE Initiative, Seamless Alliance, HAPS Alliance, TSDSI, and COAI, driving standardization, harmonization, and innovation. Sandeep holds Bachelor in Engineering degree in Electronics and Communication from IIT Roorkee and MBA in Finance and Marketing from MDI Gurgaon. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. To begin, at the onset, as announced by the government, the complete ecosystem of 5G technology, including core and radio networks as well as handsets, is being developed indigenously in the country. Sandeep, what are your thoughts and how is this progressing at Airtel?
Thanks, Sneha, for that introduction and inviting us for this Tech Talk. Greetings of the day to the audience and warm welcome to them. It's an exciting time, as we all know. We are in the phase of 5G rollouts and launch as we speak at this time. And the government's initiative, as you mentioned, Sneha, in terms of building or make in India products, indigenization and innovation in India is really the key step, I would say, in terms of realizing the vision of putting India on the top of the chart in the global telecom landscape. I think we're really excited about it and we're working all towards that same vision. Very interestingly, we'd like to share that all our radios which are planned for 5G are going to be built out of India or built in India. And that basically makes sure that we are able to innovate in terms of the market or the manufacturing capability that OEMs are putting in terms of building the equipment out of India. And those factories are basically going to build in India, the equipment in India, but build for global requirements. It's also very interesting to see that how the handsets, the smartphones are now getting built in India. In fact, we are already seeing that the premium brands, which were earlier manufacturing out of China, are now setting up factories in India itself. So we see the similar momentum in terms of the radio equipment being built in India. We're seeing the smartphones also, majority of them being built in India. On the core side, I think it's a very unique solution that we are deploying, where we're going to leverage the 4G core network itself for providing 5G services. And that is what is called as the 5G non-standalone mode of implementation. So we will leverage the same core network and progressively evolve it towards other capabilities that will be coming up in 5G in the later phases. I think it is also interesting to share that we are working closely with the indigenous organizations, R&D organizations like CDOT, in terms of testing even their technologies to be incubated and validated for getting them in our networks. I think all in all, I would say that we are in great support of Made in India, Make in India for local and global requirements.
Sure. Vishy, how do you think this Make in India concept for 5G will be helpful for larger ecosystem? What are your thoughts?
At the outset, thanks for inviting me to be here in this panel, and greetings to everybody. So Make in India, as a concept, just coming to telecom at this point in time is, very, very critical. Unlike the earlier generations of mobile technology, 5G has the ability and tendency to become probably the digital fabric for the country. Multiple applications, use cases, multiple ways of delivering services to end customers, be it consumers or enterprises. 5G is going to enable that. And at this time, if you look at the geopolitical situation that's happening around us and all the economic constraints that sort of countries are going through at this point in time, it's important that this digital fabric, which is being built by all the telecom service providers today, needs to be self-reliant in a way in India. So it's a very critical initiative that the government has taken today to promote Make in India, giving the PLI and other schemes and things like that. So in my view, there are, like Sandeep said, there are 2 or 3 different activities that are happening around Make in India in the country today. Number one, a lot of software development work with respect to maybe 5G core or various other areas that started happening. Quite a few startups are there, and I have at least come across a handful of startups who are doing 5G core development. Similarly, there is a lot of radio development also that's happening today in India, apart from global companies manufacturing in India. So that I would sort of put it into 2 separate buckets. One is this being designed, developed in India, keeping India in mind, and also probably at a later stage going global. And the other thing is global, companies setting up a manufacturing base in India, then manufacturing for India, right? So that's the second part. The third part is, of course, the device ecosystem also getting into a lot of good popular brands now have moved their manufacturing from other parts of the world towards getting the manufacturing in India, etc. Right? And the last part is also there is quite a lot of initiative that are happening in the use cases and the ecosystem for developing use cases that's happening in India. You take drones, you take cameras, you take analytics and AI functionality. So almost a lot of these functions, today, if I am looking at Tata Communications tying up with some ecosystem to provide enterprise 5G services, I don't have to cross the border. Most of what I require today, I will find at least one ecosystem provider within the country who could help me in this, right? And that it's interesting times, I would say.
Sure. So Vishy, coming to the topic about readiness, how ready do you think India is for 5G, and what initiatives are you taking to ensure higher adoption of 5G for your solutions?
Tata Communication as a company is focused towards only enterprise networks. We don't do like what Airtel does. We don't do consumer mobile network or mobile services. 2018-19 is when the US got its first 5G network, so to say. Maybe in one city they did the trial, and network was available, and with the limited ecosystem of devices, they launched the services. It's been about 3 years since then. GSMA says about 40-50 countries around the world have already started providing 5G networks. We were a little late, I would say, but albeit, if you look at the July auction that happened, probably, it's at a very opportune time. And in my view, a lot of tests and trials and perfections have happened already around the world in the last 3 years, when equipment were, deployed, devices were being built, etc. All that has already happened. So we will probably get a technology which is a little closer to maturity as compared to what happened in various other countries, who delivered this a little earlier, in my view. So even though we are later, we are a little late, I feel we would get best of the technologies that will happen in the world. Number one. Number two, I think all the operators are ready already in a way to roll out services. They had enough time to get ready, plan their backhaul, plan their sites, design their network, do all the requirements, and then sort of just waiting for the button to be pushed. That's the state in which I think all the operators are. Coming specific to what we are doing in this area to promote 5G adoption, our focus is towards enterprises. So we are looking at fixed wireless access for enterprises, partnering with operators like Airtel and others. And we are also looking at enterprise private networks, looking at providing private networks inside manufacturing units, inside mines, inside ports, etc., so that they can deliver their Industry 4.0 applications, their digital transformation initiatives. So what we are doing currently, we are helping them do a lot of trials, lots of use cases, moving from traditional networking like Ethernet and Wi-Fi, moving towards a cellular network. How does that work if I have to move a manufacturing line from a wired network towards a wireless network? So we are working with some of our customers to look at how 5G would impact their entire production setup and so on and so forth. So we are waiting for the network and the spectrum to be ready for us to start delivering those services. But we are at a high state of readiness, I would say.
Sure. Thanks for your insights, Vishy. Sandeep, now that 13 cities will be the first for initial, 5G launch, how ready do you think the consumers in the city who are already getting decent 4G speeds will be made consumers for 5G? What are your plans basically to get them on board?
Yeah, I think very interesting question, and I'm sure the audience, both in the retail market and enterprise, are looking forward for what they can expect from 5G and when they can expect 5G. And as we are saying that over the last year and plus more than a year, we've been working at Airtel in terms of making ourselves ready for 5G, including the whole ecosystem, right from the smartphone devices, the network side, and applications, both for retail customers and enterprise customers. And I think it's a very happy news that we can share that we have an aggressive plan of rollout with all the readiness that we have. And as our CEO mentioned, we plan to have an aggressive 5G rollout, which will cover pan-India, 5,000 plus towns in the next 15 to 18 months time frame. I think a lot of good news for the users who already have 5G handsets, who can then use these services as the networks get rolled out in the coming weeks and months. One more data point that I'd like to share, as you talked about the readiness point of view, that already 60 million smartphones in India are ready with 5G capability. In Airtel network itself, we have about 20 million such handsets which are already having 5G capability in terms of the hardware, and some of them even ready with the software. So I think these subscribers who are having the 5G handsets and the hardware and software readiness on these handsets, they can really get onboarded to the 5G network that we're rolling out without any intervention. What do I mean by that is, the good news for our customers is that they don't need to go back and change their SIMs or make any change in terms of going to any retail store asking for 5G services. It will be coming more naturally, more digitally to them, and it will be minimum of, or I would say, no intervention from a human perspective, no manual intervention. It has to just be ready on the device side, and they will be able to enjoy the services. Similarly, we are building a lot of these capabilities in terms of private networks that will be rolled out for enterprises. We were, in fact, the first one to deploy the private network using 4G almost 2 years back with Nokia. And now, over the last year, when we've been given trial spectrum, we've done more than a dozen of such trials with enterprises on different use cases. And these are the ones that we really see will benefit our enterprise customers in terms of using private networks as a combination of 4G and 5G, and really using them to transform their own backend operations, digitize and improve their productivity, as well as, I would say, safety and security of their assets in both the human resources and the machine assets that they have. So a lot of things that we can all look forward for.
Sure. Thanks, Sandeep. So the remainder of the questions are for both of you. Coming to the infrastructural readiness, the fiberization of sites and the number of towers needed are far behind the ideal picture right now in India. And more than 70% towers still need to get fiberized for the launch of 5G. To make it a success, it is necessary that there are some certain investments made to densify networks for giving provision of fibers, small cells, and sharing active infrastructure. So what are your thoughts around this, Sandeep?
Yes, I think you rightly mentioned, and I think it's very important that we all realize that backhaul is critical for any broadband network, including 5G. Because as we are increasing capacities and experience and throughput on the access side, be it wireless or wireline, one has to have these capacities transported back to the data center and make sure that we are able to leverage on that capability that we're building with new spectrum or fiber to the home. At Airtel, we are doing a lot of things in terms of making sure that we are augmenting this backhaul capacity in traditional and non-traditional ways. As you said, sites are not necessarily as much fiberized as one would like to. In India, typically about 1/3 of the sites or towers are fiberized and rest are not fiberized. But doesn't mean that we will have any shortfall in terms of, or shortcoming in terms of launching 5G. What we're doing is we are basically enhancing the fiberization at one time. Like we are obviously going the traditional route of increasing fiber to these sites. But at the same time, thanks to DOT, we are also using the wireless media, which is now commonly known as E-band spectrum, that we will be leveraging to really provide that backhaul capacity to the non-fiberized side. And I think it's very interesting for us to share as a technology, E-band can give us the gigabit capacity on the backhaul like a fiber will do. So this is way that we will obviously complement fiber along with the augmentation of our microwave assets, both using E-band and traditional spectrum that we have, using things like XPIC and MIMO technology on the microwave as well. What we are also doing is we are now converging a lot of our assets which are to the homes. So fiber to the home, we are also converging and using it for fiberizing our own sites. So I think a lot of these mix of assets, fiber to the sites, fiber to the home being used to fiberize the site, and as I said, the augmentation of microwave capacity, traditional and E-band, will make sure that we will not be any distance away in terms of, or any shortfall in terms of increasing the capacity which is required for 5G backhaul. So overall, I think we are in good hand. As you said, the sites that will come up in future, they may be like street furniture sites. They may be small cell sites. I think the world is moving in that direction because densification will not be possible just using the macro network. You would have to go to small cell architecture, which we call it as heterogeneous network mix of small cell and macro cells. So when you deploy a small cell over street furniture, where again, I think DOT and TRAI are taking a lot of initiatives, we really have to work towards making sure that this infrastructure deployed on the street is lightweight, shareable, as well as is connected over fiber, because microwave on street furniture will not really be effective because of the height of that particular street furniture. So I think as an industry, as a government, we really have to work together in terms of making our street furniture really ready for such type of 5G deployment, which will need the strengthening of the street furniture, both from, I would say, loading and the power perspective, but also from fiberization to these street furnitures. Overall, I think fiber as a national asset, shareable across operators, without any with full neutrality, I would say, will basically be the success factor for India to really be able to move faster on the broadband arena.
Sure,
Thanks.
Sandeep. Those were some great points, Sandeep. Thank you. Vishy, what are your thoughts on the infrastructure readiness?
I think India is probably one of the pioneers from a site sharing perspective. If you look at probably sharing a common tower, etc., in a way I would say was that business model was invented in India in some form, I would say. So we have been pioneers in that area. I'm sure that the government is currently, whatever the revised norms that they're coming out with, etc., would encourage further such sharing of infrastructure by way of fiber, by way of small cells. Technologically, today radios can be shared. You can have one common radio in which you can transmit 5G of different operator spectrums. Now that's feasible. Majority of the radios are software defined, so it is easy to download a new image and then make that radio transmit for 2 operators, 3 operators, and so on. So technologically, there is no limitations to, I would say. The norms and the way of controlling and compliance is, I think, those are the things that I think is being looked at today. How does DoT ensure compliance amongst operators? And also, like Sandeep said, if we open up this street furniture for densification of small cells and of 5G, how do you ensure that it is not being misused for certain other purposes, etc.? I think those are beyond technology. There are other factors that are there today that is sort of that is bugging the minds of the regulator, I would say. But sharing backhaul, sharing transmission network has been there in the country. Operators sell and buy from each other, bandwidth for sites, for enterprise customers, etc., etc. That's been there. And to that extent, the sense of cooperation, so to say, exists. A good way of cooperation in the infrastructure while you compete in the service, that does exist in the country, and that's also not a problem. And that type, the business models are not too much of an issue. I would say that the government is taking steps in the positive direction towards this, and we are also looking forward to that, because we as an operator, we are suppliers to many of the other operators from network backhaul network services perspective. So we are also looking forward towards the revised norms from the government to for right of way, for clearances, for sharing, and all of that put together.
Sure. Thanks for your insights, Vishy. So, like you mentioned earlier, the area of 5G for enterprises. As you know, the direct assignment of the spectrum is still a work in progress for private 5G networks for enterprises. And what are your thoughts, basically, around building this 5G for enterprises ecosystem, and what potential do you think it brings?
Many countries, it's not only in India. Many countries, like the way that they have done the 2.54 and 5.8 gigahertz spectrum for Wi-Fi, whatever has been done. Similarly, there has been some specific small chunk of spectrum that's been set aside for enterprises to set up a private network. And many countries, US, UK, Germany, they've been pioneers. Then Korea, and the models have been a little bit different between countries. Some countries adopted as CBRS type of model in the US versus the way UK has made it so simple to apply and get a spectrum and things like that. So the models have been a little different between each countries. And in my view, India, as a country has been into a fairly regulated market for a long time. So what happens is even when some such thing is made available, for enterprises to realize that this is being made available and then apply for that and it will take some time for them to recognize that such an avenue is available for them. Beyond working with the operators, they also have another additional avenue to, discover. And we are taking steps as a company to educate our enterprise customers that you have an option, because if you have a complicated use case that you're running, you're running a car production line and then you're producing, say, 1 car a minute type of a thing. I'm just taking a hypothetical thing, and if you're producing those type of stuff and you want to be competitive to the external world, you need to ensure that you automate that entire line, make it ready for digitalization. You're exporting and the quality of the car has to be top notch and things like that. Then they need to know that compared to the best effort network that they were using before, like a Wi-Fi or a Ethernet or whatever, they do have a quality, committed network that can be made available to them, and they can do it by themselves using the direct allocation of spectrum. So there is definitely a possibility, and there is a lot of education that we have initiated. All of us will have to come together to make this happen. This is not about a fight of who owns the customer, or it's more about nation building. I would say it's a need for a nation. If you have to, so there is a statistic which says about 3 lakh enterprise campuses are there in this country. Okay, now if 3 lakh enterprise campuses are there, there is enough opportunity for each of the currently three big operators and maybe BSNL fourth operator, all 4 operators to serve. There's also enough opportunity for people like us to serve, and there is more opportunity for enterprises to go directly get a spectrum and put up a network of their own. There is enough market and opportunity that's available in the plate. But I think as a community ecosystem, our interest or our initiative should be, how do we ensure that all of these 3 lakh campuses benefit out of the 5G network and move into the industry 4.0 movement, and they become competitive in the world. They are ready for not only for satisfying the Indian requirement, they are also able to compete against world biggies and export their wares into multiple countries. I would look at it from that point of view.
Sure. Thanks, Vishy. Sandeep, what are your thoughts on this, on the 5G for enterprises?
Yeah, I think this is where we see 5G will be another game changer, enabling and having immense opportunities beyond just the better connectivity for smartphones, especially for the enterprises as we're talking right now. I think it has a potential for bringing real transformation that the enterprises now desire to, after seeing the benefits of digitizing their front end. They now really were looking forward in terms of digitizing their backend operations to really make themselves competitive in the global landscape. As we all are talking about make in India for local, but for global, I think the way to digitize their backend and the front end is the way to really make themselves really very competitive in the global arena. And I think what we've been seeing is, and we've been working with, as I said, a lot of these enterprises, but key sectors such as manufacturing, automobiles, mining, healthcare, media, in some manner education. I think they're all coming forward and looking for ways that they can implement private networks using the mix of technologies to really bring the operational efficiency, safety and security, and be the best in terms of adoption of the technology for their own operations. And I think there are a lot of use cases that we've been working with these enterprises in terms of what can cut horizontally, what will cut vertically to a particular segment of the industries. And we're seeing very, very positive results in terms of enthusiasm of these enterprises to go and deploy this. I think another factor which is very important to realize is that why is this right time? Is this just because of 5G? But I think it's a mix of technologies which are coming together at this time. Whether you talk about 5G for pure connectivity, lower latency, higher throughput, as you said, but then you put it along with the edge cloud networks, which basically have capability to make sure that we are able to process the data that is getting generated from all this connectivity at the far edge within the enterprise or at the edge of telecom networks. And on top of it, capabilities like AI, ML, or artificial intelligence, video analytics, which basically are enabling a lot of use cases that were not possible for multiple reasons before this time. So as we've seen 4G really increase this whole size of digital services by bringing a lot of digital services over that 4G network, we see 5G will also be like acting like a platform along with these all technologies put together to really enable the enterprises to realize their dreams and their vision of digitizing their operations. I think it also has an opportunity to connect the enterprises that were not able to connect because they were in the far edge, far locations. So 5G will be able to have that type of connectivity, even if it is fixed wireless connectivity to every hook and corner of the country. What we call it is bridging the digital divide between the so-called not connected world and the connected world that we have. And I think that's an important opportunity that we really see that enterprises should really catch on. In terms of the spectrum and the regulations and the policies, yes, there is a lot of discussion about how the spectrum could be allocated. I would say the government is already taking a cognizance of how to make sure that it's all is rationalized in terms of incentivizing the operators who have invested heavily in terms of buying that spectrum. Just to share that number, that the industry, as we're talking about the July auction, the August auction, has invested into 1.4 lakh crores, committed 1.4 lakh crores among all the three operators into this 5G spectrum. And I'm sure that the whatever policies being talked about in terms of balancing the deployment using that spectrum versus spectrum for captive private networks would be fair and would be like level playing field in terms of making sure that the operators keep on are given that incentive to roll out the network while obviously engaging with the enterprises for serving them in these opportunities.
Sure, Sandeep. Thank you so much. You just touched upon the technology aspect. So I wanted to ask, how are you leveraging technology in your projects and initiatives for 5G, like market opportunities that are presented by ORAN or anything else that you're leveraging?
Yeah, so interesting again, Sneha, because this is being the tech talk. I think this is another centerpiece of this discussion. And I think technology is finding a lot of ground within Airtel, even in the current ways of working on 4G itself. But obviously 5G gives us more opportunities. But all put together, I would say that now we are using technology like never before in terms of how we are digitizing our own internal processes, how we are digitizing our ways to reach out to the customers, right from the discovery of the service to the experience of the service, how we're building technology to engage with the partners, and using technology to foster the startup ecosystem, as we recently just announced at Hackathon, which is to make sure that the startups are able to share their ideas and we are able to incubate their ideas into bigger products or big, to launch products in future. Overall, I think within 5G, if I were to talk about, there are a few things happening. One is, as I said, the complete digitization of design to deploy to experience. But within the 5G architecture, we also are leveraging upon the ORAN technology as well. We have been working, I would say, and it's a pleasure to share that we've been pioneers of trials of ORAN and now in the face of deployment or field trials as well on the ORAN technology. ORAN is nothing but Open RAN, which basically gives the industry to have an open radio network, which was not possible till now. And it is possible through openness, open interfaces, disaggregation that is getting defined by the ORAN Alliance. So I think it's a very positive and welcome news that now there is a wider choice of ecosystem. In fact, it gives opportunities to Indian software houses to engage and be able to contribute to this whole platform, which possibly was not possible when it was all closed networks till now. So I think the whole concept about bringing openness on the radio network, bringing openness in the cloud architecture, having options to deploy cloud in different manners, even going up to the far edge to the RAN locations, is what we are all evaluating and working upon. We already had, as I said, trialed out ORAN over the last 6 months in Chandigarh, and the results are very positive. We are working closely with Mavenir, as we've announced some time back, and we see that we will be taking their deployments for further field, experience and further test, validation in terms of how it will provide the experience, which is no less than what experience traditional RAN providers will provide. That's one area that we've been working on technology. And beyond this, as I said, on the enterprise side, we're working on use of tech for creating edge cloud networks. And I think, again, here I would say that we already have more than about 100 core locations, which are nothing but like data centers. And the enterprises can leverage those locations in terms of creating that edge cloud applications, which will reduce the latency as well as reduce the backhaul requirements from the applications that they deploy at their enterprise locations, and they can be processed at our edge locations. Obviously, we are also building more capabilities to take the edge directly to the enterprise location itself, which we call it as far edge. But I think the combination of private networks and the edge cloud and the capabilities of artificial intelligence and analytics, we really think that this is the right time for enterprises to really leverage the technology and we to serve the enterprises with whatever needs that they have for their digitization.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sandeep. Vishy, what are your thoughts on the integration of technology into 5G solutions?
So, I would say probably some of the seeds of what is happening today in the 5G world were laid maybe 3-4 years ago when software-defined networking and network function virtualization, what is popularly called as SDN NFV, that took roots about 3-4 years ago. And many operators, particularly European operators, did a lot of trials with SDN NFV. And then there were standards organization which came out with the standard architectures and orchestration mechanisms, etc. for these. And that's a route, I would say, because when 5G has been delivered by various ecosystem partners, fairly there's a lot of emphasis towards virtualization there. Now, most functions of the network is software. Even the radio function has been broken down into multiple pieces, and barring one mandatorily hardware piece, which is power amplifier and antenna, everything else is running as software. I'm using the word fairly because the architectural differences between different OEM manufacturers varies a little where they draw the line, varies a little, but fairly software, right? So once it has been made into software, the opportunities are immense. We have seen the way that IT has bloomed in this country over the last 30 odd years. We are able to bring all that intelligence and all the software might that this country has. We have been able to bring all of that into existence with 5G. So this is software defined everything. Software defined network, software defined storage, software defined radio. So everything is practically software. So that's a great change that's happened, and we are leveraging that heavily. Using virtualized network functions. So that opens up the opportunity for cloud and edge and everything else, right? You are able to take out some part of the radio function itself, the software piece, run it on the server that is sitting in the operator's edge, like Sandeep mentioned, right? So you are able to run it there. So and you're able to manage all of these things using an SDN orchestrator. So everything becomes relatively easier and simple, I would say. So most of the trials that we are doing and the lab that we have set up, all of that is completely software defined. We are trying to do as much as possible on NFV and software defined way. But one thing is, the level of adoption by various OEM manufacturers on completely software, and hence moving towards the open RAN is a little different. Their roadmaps are a little different. Somebody is faster than the other in the adoption of open RAN, primarily because you have a huge legacy of R&D technology that you've already invested on, and then you need to monetize that, apart from at the same time adapt to the newer standards that are coming by. Probably some of the younger, nimbler part OEM manufacturers are faster than the others in this particular thing. But we are working with both the mature manufacturers and the younger, nimbler manufacturers to try out what gives the best advantage for our enterprise customers. At some stages, probably open RAN becomes more useful at a certain size and above. Probably when you go to a very small size enterprise campus, probably an open RAN may not be the best of the choice. Probably may become more expensive than a traditional, all-in-one box type of a RAN. So we are trying both type of technologies. And as I said, software has become the bedrock for our entire innovation on top, right? Compute platforms are fairly competitive now and fairly, I would say, undifferentiated. So you're able to run most of these things on computers. So hence that opens up all of these, bringing AI ML into the edge, bringing in, taking vision engineering, computer vision and AI ML together and trying to use the edge platform to provide edge analytics. So there are quite a lot of plethora of, I would say, opportunities that get opened up because we deploy these type of technologies.
Thanks, Vishy, for your great insights. Coming to my last question, basically wanted to understand what are the current challenges that you are facing in scaling up. This could be related to ecosystem, government policies, pricing, technology, etc. And what are the recommendations that you suggest for increasing the adoption of 5G solutions in the country? So these recommendations could be for the government, industry players, tech integrators, or startups, anything. So Vishy, if you could share your insights on this.
I would say the limitation I would say is in two angles, and those two angles lead to a third angle as well. First thing is the ecosystem development. When we were running 4G, and Sandeep could corroborate this, it took about 4 years for multiple device vendors, not just the handsets and tablets, but also the IoT devices and those type of equipment as well, to have a complete ecosystem made available for 4G, all frequencies, all country variants. For that to happen, it took 4 or 5 years, I would say. And in 5G, we have already 3 years have passed by since the first network was up and running in the US. For some reason, COVID could be one of those reasons, and hence the semiconductor shortage could be the leading and lagging reasons, I would say. The speed at which the device ecosystem is developing, there's a lot to be desired, in that, I would say. I am definitely not happy that the time that is taking for the device ecosystem to develop. There is no particular, and I'm not blaming a particular ecosystem partner. It is just the situations. There's a fantastic technology that came into existence towards the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, and then comes COVID, which sort of puts a break into a lot of these developments. We have practically lost a couple of years in this entire journey. So device ecosystem is definitely a challenge. Okay. And hence what happens is the price is becoming a challenge because the device ecosystem is a problem. It is very expensive for enterprises currently to adopt to do private network or get into industrial IoT or video analytics or computer vision engineering, any of these things, because of the device ecosystem is not developed with natively 5G. They still have to depend on other technologies like Wi-Fi and Ethernet and other technologies. It becomes pretty expensive. The device so pricing is definitely an issue that I would say. From a technology perspective, we started NFV. I just mentioned as a part of the answer to the last question that network virtualization is one of the biggest thing that happened to us. But then the result of network virtualization turning out into cost effectiveness is something I think there is still some time to go. I wouldn't say if I have to look at if I implement virtual network functions, am I really cutting down the cost of deploying a network by half or whatever factor? The answer is no. Still, I'm not still losing hope. There is still time to come. And the last part is there's a lot of hype about power consumption optimization that 5G would bring about, and I'm yet to see that. Right. So these are the challenges. And what are we doing? We are working with the ecosystem. The thing is, with the entire ecosystem, starting from devices to network OEMs to compute companies, application companies. All of that, we are working with these ecosystem to try and see how we can bring general availability of devices and also hence the cost. How do we bring the cost down? And at the same time, educate enterprise customers, because as I said, Tata Comms is purely an enterprise player. So we are making 5G as a digital fabric on which any enterprise can build applications. So we are making it simple for enterprises to build applications and roll out applications, taking the worry about the complexity of the radio network underneath, right? So can we make it as simple as what they were seeing from an Ethernet point of view or a Wi-Fi point of view? Can we make it as simple, right? So that is something that we are working on. We are working with the ecosystem to make it simple for adoption and cost effective so that we are able to drive enterprise 5G adoption a reality.
Sure. Thanks, Vishy, for your great insights. Sandeep, what are your challenges and recommendations on this?
Yeah, I think I'll pick up from what Vishy was sharing, and I think we can talk about how the device ecosystem becomes very, very critical for adoption. And I think I'll just talk about a few things picking up from what Vishy alluded towards. It's that the device ecosystem, one is the pace of 5G enabled devices. We are seeing about 30% of the new shipment, around 35% of the new shipments being 5G. We are all expecting it to be faster in terms of making sure that the new shipments are more 5G enabled than they continue to be 4G enabled. So that will make sure that the adoption is faster for sure. But I think it has to also be related to what type of these smartphone capabilities are coming in. I think it's very important for the industry from both telco as well as the device OEMs to really align to bring the capabilities in the device that can best leverage the capabilities of the network. I think that is where a lot of this alignment is required between these two industries, I would say, because we are in an open market ecosystem where the operators does not necessarily, I would say, subsidize the devices, and they don't have the control, but there still has to be a lot of alignment in what type of devices, what capabilities are coming up. Like just to give an example to our audience here, if we talk about deploying, let's say, a standalone network, a standalone network typically requires carrier aggregation of a very high band, like 3.5 gigahertz with a low band. Now, those carrier aggregation devices are very minuscule. They're like maybe at this time, even 25% of the devices support this type of capability. 3/4 does not even support that capability. So I think it's very important that the device OEM and players ecosystem aligns with what the operators are trying to build up, and that alignment will help the customers to get the right device in their hands that can give them the best experience. And I think it can happen at a faster pace at a lower cost is what the end customers will like to have. And I think just to continue on this devices a little bit more, when you talk about enterprise networks or we talk about private networks, the type of devices required in those networks will be beyond smartphones. And those devices, again, have to really develop in terms of the ecosystem, in terms of their affordability to the enterprises, and in terms of the choice of ecosystem partners. I think that's another area that we all need to develop as ecosystem for making sure that the enterprise adoption is also higher on 5G. And that we are all looking forward, working towards these ecosystem players in our own manner, plus also working with our smart OEMs to make sure that they are able to build the right type of products for the right type of network and the price. I think moving on, the other side is the enterprise networks itself is very, very important opportunities that we've all talked today. I think there again, we have to make sure that the enterprise and the industry verticals really work closely with the software community and with the telcos or the operators to make sure that we are aligning to their problem statements. We are making something which is going to be replicable to multiple industries so that we don't have to make custom applications, but some more generic application like what happened in 4G. You would have more generic applications that would cut across, either we're talking about video or we talk about e-commerce or we're talking about security. So I think we should have more of discussions with the industry in terms of their requirements, how the software community and the technology companies or digital companies like ourselves, we can work together in terms of building something which is more scalable and I would say replicable across industries. So that I think this is the area we are working towards. As I shared, that we are really inviting startups. We are working with the industry verticals, with the key sectors that I shared earlier in terms of understanding them. And I think more openness in that discussion, maybe even enabled through ministries involved here, which really would help. I think DOT is taking a lot of steps in that direction to bring the industry and technology or telecom companies together. I think that's a very, very welcome step, and I think we should do more of those type of engagements. So I think these are the two things that I would say that will be very important. I think the other two things what I would say would be more coming from the real assets that we would need for enabling any network, spectrum and fiber. And I think there we have an opinion that a lot of spectrum which is in the sub-gigahertz band has been sitting idle for a lot of years because of the type of pricing of the sub-gigahertz spectrum. And I think we obviously been making a suggestion that government can look at using the sub-gigahertz spectrum for rural broadband connectivity than just taking fiber as a way to take it to the rural markets. I think the government's vision to connect every home in rural market for broadband is a very welcome one. But till now, I think it's happening through this whole BBNL network, the NOFN project, which is only focused on fiber. I think there could be opportunity that we use the sub-gigahertz spectrum, make it more compulsory or mandatory for a rollout obligation rather than monetizing it directly from the auction perspective. So I'm sure that regulators, DOT will think about it, and then we could come out with a different way of using the sub-gigahertz spectrum. On the similar lines, I think fiber has to be national asset. We're seeing a lot of us as operators having the fiber, but we're seeing a lot of enterprising having fiber itself, which is like all these power grid companies, the gas companies, the distribution companies. They are also having assets in form of ducts in terms of fiber as well. And I think railways again could be another example. So all these enterprises, operators should really have a way to engage in terms of using this fiber as a shared media on neutral terms. I think it has to be more neutral terms across these owners so that we don't have any, I would say, bias in terms of how one is using it against the other. I think it should be more like a national asset and make sure that everyone is able to leverage on that asset for the national benefit or for the national, I would say, vision of improving the broadband to the homes and to the customers. So with those thoughts, I really look forward that we would have good discussions going forward, and hopefully we'll see much more better policies aligned or favorable policies aligned to use of national resources. And we from our side will make sure that we are not stopping at any time in terms of making our commitments for rollouts, as well as starting, engaging with a startup for better applications and use cases.
Great. Thanks. Those were great points, Sandeep. Thank you, Sandeep and Vishy, for joining us today. I think your insights were very valuable, and this was a very fruitful discussion. That's it from the edition of Tech Talks. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions happening in the Indian tech industry with NASSCOM Insights YouTube channel. Please like, share, subscribe. Till then, it's goodbye from everyone here at NASSCOM Insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.